Hello, my friend. On today's episode, I am back with Ben Pickard, and we're diving into a topic that every gym owner needs to master, which is how to collect and use client feedback effectively. We cover different ways to collect for and ask for feedback without making it awkward, how to actually do something useful with that feedback once you get it, and how to build a thicker skin along the way so you don't take every comment personally. So if you ever wondered how to get more Google reviews or respond constructively to criticism, this episode is packed with practical strategies for you. Before we jump into today's conversation, I want to let you know about a free tool we have for you. It's called the Ultimate Gym Owner Report Card. And if you've listened to this podcast before, I've mentioned it before. If you're a gym owner with 30 or more clients, this tool helps you get clear on where your business is crushing it and where your systems might need some work. It takes less than 10 minutes, and it's a great way to identify what to focus on next. You'll find the link down in the show notes below, so click it, download it, and start using it today. It's free, and it's yours. All right, let's get into today's episode. Hello, fitness business nerds. What's up? Welcome to another episode of the Business for Unicorns podcast. I'm here today with my man, Ben. What's up, my friend?
Not much, Michael. How you doing?
I'm doing great. I know we've talked before about you being a very outdoorsy man, and this past weekend, you've done even more outdoorsy things. You want to tell people about your tractor? Is that what it's called?
Excavator.
Excavator. See, I'm already behind the ball here.
Yeah. So the short version of this is a few years ago, us and some friends bought a 200-acre property 4 hours north of where I live. It's near Sundridge or Algonquin Park for the Canadians who are listening. And the plan is to expand. It's got a shitty old cabin on it, but it's great property. So we want to expand the cabin. So we bought a sawmill and it's all forest. So anyways, to do this, we bought an excavator, an old used one that it was a good fit for our budget and needs.
Yeah.
And this past weekend, we finally got it and did a whole bunch of work with it and cleared some bush to have an area to start prepping to do the work we want to do. And I've never driven an excavator before.
That's amazing.
He owned a construction company. And I've just basically spent the time outside cutting trees, moving dirt, smelling diesel fumes, planning for the future. It was fantastic.
That's so cool. I can't imagine driving around a big excavator and just being able to clear land like that. It just sounds like, it feels like you have so much power in your hands with like a hydraulic machine like that.
It was honestly kind of terrifying how powerful this thing, like no joke, I was telling you earlier, 6 to 8 inch diameter tree that's 50 feet tall.
Yeah.
You just push it over.
That's so wild.
Need to move a rock this half the size of a car? No big deal.
No big deal. Wow. That's wild. I'm always just so impressed by your outdoor adventures because I'm just, I was impressed by like 2 weeks ago. I added some like watering tubing to my deck plants. And I thought I did some irrigation, some automatic irrigation to my deck plants. And I was like, you know what? I'm so freaking outdoorsy. But then Ben's like, you know what? I got on my excavator and cleared 2 acres of land. And I'm like, damn, I don't belong in this conversation.
I don't have expertise in it. I just have a willingness to learn. I might follow up separately about irrigation because I like plants, but abhor watering them. So that actually sounds right up my alley.
Oh yeah, I'll tell you all about it. We'll circle back. Well, let's dive into today's conversation. So today, what we wanted to talk about is actually client feedback. One of the things that's been a real pillar, both at Mark Fisher Fitness and Business for Unicorns, I know this has been true for your gym, Ben, is we all have really had an approach to client feedback. And that approach is client feedback is essential. Like getting feedback from their clients at the gym, learning how to process that feedback, how to ask for it at the right times and the right ways, use the data from that feedback to make improvements is just such a critical part of being a leader of your business and of your gym. And so I wanted to kind of just break down today the reasons why collecting and using client feedback is so important. And we want to kind of break down all the ways we've done it that we felt have been successful. So let's just start, Ben, with you just sharing a little bit of what's your experience been like in running your gym in terms of how and when you collect client feedback.
Well, I want to start by saying I used to be terrified of getting feedback.
Yeah.
So I'd say in
That's
the early years of us starting the gym, like I'd ask like, hey, how's this exercise feeling? I wasn't completely oblivious. but I didn't have any like structured client feedback systems because honestly, I was really nervous that I was not doing a good enough job or delivering at the standard I wanted to. And I like to, I didn't want to make the gaps in my game obvious. I'm not sure. I'm trying to think of how
Yeah.
I emotionally connected to feedback 8 years ago. Um, since then, I've evolved my thinking, thankfully. Um, and there's kind of like two main ways that we collect, or three main ways we collect client feedback. One is through soliciting Google reviews, as most gyms do. But the good ones and the bad ones tell you a lot. It's not just, yes, we got a good 5-star review. There can be a lot of value in digging into why did they give us a 5-star review. Some people say more, some people say less. Your mileage may vary. The second piece is just informal feedback. I actually did an in-service for my team about this last week, about making sure at the end of each phase of programming, we ask for what they want to see more of, what they want to see less of. It's kind of a version of like best next time that we ask the client. So I consider that kind of informal feedback where it's just a conversation about how you're liking things, how's this feeling,
Yep.
beyond just like how was the squat versus the lunge. And then the most structured way we collect client feedback is with a quarterly member feedback survey. And we'll adjust the questions periodically. It's not like they change every quarter. We do want to see consistency. We can see if we can improve. Like if cleanliness was bad, we want to ask about cleanliness 3 months later to see if they think it's better.
Mm-hmm.
But that would be like a more formalized way of gathering client feedback that me and my GM then debrief on. And we do a thing that I don't know.
Can I interrupt you for a second?
Yeah,
Sorry, I just want to say before we get into the next step, I just want to pause at the collection step for a second and say, in terms of collecting, what I think I heard was like 3 specific things, right? Which is Google reviews, which might come organically or might push for them, but looking at them and learning from them is helpful.
Yep.
More casual feedback, which is just your team talking to your clients on a regular basis. Even someone at a front desk being like, how was your workout today? It's like a really useful, just casual way of asking, how are things going? And training your team on how and when to ask, whether it's during each cycle of a program design phase or, whatever the case may be, but casually, but intentionally asking for feedback in conversation. And the third one was a little bit more formal, which is like a survey you might do every quarter on a regular basis. Those all make total sense to me. And I think that's a really good list for our listeners to start with. I'll just add one more, which is I do think there's a kind of a non-cyclical version of getting for feedback, which is when you're trying to make a big decision or make change, you might have like this kind of as needed kind of need for feedback. So for example, if you're thinking about adding some new class times, you might do like a casual poll in your Facebook group, or you're thinking about, opening a new location. You might do like a survey to your whole email list about, where they live or where they might be willing to travel to, or, you get complaints about the music. You might do a survey about what kind of music do you want, right? So there might be a moment to collect feedback at like key decision points, both, small scale decisions like what music should we be playing more of, and big scale ones like, where should we open another location, or, that kind of thing. And so I just want to add that last category, which is sometimes feedback is you only need in certain moments when you're at certain decision points or pivot points, and more data is helpful. I think it's also a good moment to turn to your clients, like, hey, we're kind of unclear about our client avatar. Cool. Go interview a bunch of your clients. Go survey a bunch of your clients. Get more data about that if you're not sure how to adjust your marketing, right? So I just wanted to add that one more. But let's pivot and talk about once you get data like this, formally, informally, any of the ways we talked about, a lot of the people's hesitation about getting it is they don't know what to do with it once they got it. Right? And all that anxiety you described, which is, I think, very normal for a lot of gym owners, is like, I don't want to see it. And so how do you bring yourself to like look at it and analyze it in a way that's useful?
That's a great question. Well, I want to, there's probably a better reason than this that you could explain more academically than I could. But some of just kind of numbing myself to some sometimes very mean or hurtful, not like they intended to be mean, but the impact on me was hurtful. Feedback is you just get your reps in.
Mm-hmm.
You just have to see people that don't like the thing enough times. They're like, yeah, it's okay. Not everyone's going to like it. It doesn't mean I don't care. It just means that I've got a little bit more of a thicker skin, I guess is the best way to
Yeah.
say it.
Well, I think just to pause there for a second and say, I think this idea of a thicker skin, I know it's like a real phenomenon, right? Right. And in many cases, we think of this in like clinical therapy. There's a thing called exposure therapy, right? The most basic example for this is like you're afraid of spiders. Well, one of the ways to get unafraid of spiders is slowly getting you closer and closer to spiders. It's exposure therapy. You put a spider in the next room next to you, or you think about a spider, and then you have one in a room far away, and then it gets closer and closer. And over time, you learn to manage your reaction to that. You learn to get less scared. And I use that as an example because I'm terrified of spiders, and the idea of exposure therapy and spiders actually makes me sweat. But it's a real thing. It's a real phenomenon that the more you expose yourself to that thing that upsets you, the more you can regulate your emotions and your response. And feedback's the same way. You can absolutely develop this, quote, thicker skin, which is really just your ability to cope with this negative feeling arising. And over time, it'll feel less and less negative because you get more and more used to it. And so I just want to pause and say, that's a real thing, right? You can actually intentionally, quote, develop a thicker skin when it comes to negative feedback. And most people, like yourself, like Mr. Mark Fisher, who also, like you and many others, struggle with feedback at first and got used to it, myself included, many years ago. Just got more and more used to it. So I think it's an important piece of it, and it's not swallowing it or pushing it down or avoiding those feelings. It's actually leaning into the fact that you can train yourself to have a different response.
Yeah. So beautiful. Thank you for validating that. So yeah. I just subjected myself to self-imposed exposure therapy when it came to feedback via just getting more of it.
Yeah.
So then to get to your actual question of like, well, what do we do with that? The filters, like, let me back up a little bit. You have taught me, I'm pretty sure it was you taught me that the only right answer to receiving feedback is saying thank you for the feedback. That is always the first step. Now, if you do a formalized feedback survey, you'll typically get better feedback when it's anonymous because people aren't worried that it's going to reflect on them. So you don't always have the opportunity to like directly thank each individual for the feedback. Or if you're like a multi-location, much larger gym, you might not be able to send out 1,000 texts and say thank you for the personalized feedback. But it's when you possible thank people. So even if that is just a broadcast email to your members, it's like, thank you for everyone who did this. We use this to do these things. You can still like let them know that the feedback isn't going unanswered. There's nothing worse than doing a feedback survey and then nothing comes of it. I'm like, I'm not even going to do this anymore. My bank doesn't care what I think.
Yep.
So step one is, if possible, thank them in whatever way you can.
Hey there, Business for Unicorns podcast listeners. If you haven't had a chance yet to leave us a rating and a review on whatever platform you listen to this podcast, it would be so awesome if you take just a quick second to do that. And here's why. Number one, by leaving us a rating and review, you'll allow our podcast audience to grow so more gym owners can build a life and a gym they love. And number two, by leaving us feedback, you'll help us shape the future of the podcast so we know what you like, we know what you don't like, and we know what types of content is resonating and what else should we create for you. Thank you so much for your consideration. And now back to the show.
Step two is looking at, like, is this feedback true? Because it's possible that people are giving feedback that's, let's say somebody signed up at my gym and one of their pieces of feedback right off the bat was, I don't like that this place doesn't have 5 saunas. It's like, well, it's true to them that they apparently would prefer to have 5 saunas, but like, we never promised saunas as part of the value proposition. So that's feedback that is like, I'm not really going to do a whole lot with. I might talk to that person if I have their name, but that, like, it's not really valid because it's not really a thing that we are looking to get better at because we don't have that thing. Or like, I don't like that they're not 24/7. Well, if you didn't promise people 24/7 access, like that's kind of just fine.
Yeah. Well, can I offer maybe because I agree with you. I think the next thing you do as you sort through the data is maybe not decide what's true or not. Because I think you made this great point, which is it's true for them that this is a pain point.
Yes.
It's true for them. They want you to be open 24/7, whether you ever promise that or not. So like I think that the way I might frame this is decide what's actionable or not.
Yeah,
right. Because I think that's kind of what you're saying here, which is like, that might be true for you. Right. So we're not just determining capital T truth. We're determining like, I'm not acting on that. Right. We never promised that. That's not part of our plan. We don't even have a sauna, let alone 5 saunas. Right. Like, it's just not actionable for me, but it is good information to know Part of the reason someone might not come there is you might have the facilities they're looking for, or part of the reason they might not come there is that you don't have the hours available that they want, right? So it's useful information, but is it actionable? Maybe not. Does that resonate with you at all?
Yeah, that's a much better filter. Struggling with truth versus validity versus actionable, and actionable is the right framing for this, I think.
Yeah.
So then the step after that we've done is we try to act on what we can. So I want to clarify that doesn't mean that we do everything that people request.
Yeah.
Or that doesn't mean we do everything that they don't like. Sometimes it is like, yeah, I'm not interested in getting a sauna at my gym right now, so like not happening. So what we've done as a way, this is simply because I hate when I fill out feedback surveys and I don't hear anything back, is we actually post that feedback on a blog post.
Mm-hmm.
So, and now it's intentional. If somebody says something like real lashing, we've got a little bit about that, particularly when I transitioned out of managing the gym to owning the gym. I had a few long-term clients say some very hurtful things.
Yeah.
I did not put that on publicly for obvious reasons. But we put up the real feedback, and we only fix grammatical and typos, like people use run-on sentences and stuff. And then we intentionally pepper in the good feedback with the bad feedback so that a new member coming in who sees this isn't like, these people are fucking terrible. But we post it there with a response.
Yep.
And when someone's like, hey, I want you guys to get a sauna, I can respond and be like, hey, totally understand. Here's how I feel about saunas. And that's just not something we're looking at doing right now. If you'd like to chat further, like I'm curious with the benefits I'm curious why you want a sauna, please contact me directly. They never do. But we still respond to it.
Yep.
We've had members come up to us and be like, I love that you actually responded to that feedback. The number of times people have asked for us to get a bank of treadmills in our gym, and the number of times I've said that's just not going to happen here due to a whole bunch of reasons.
Yep.
Like, at least we're giving an answer to it. And then for the stuff that we can improve, we use that in like things like team meetings. So maybe it's like role playing certain things with the staff. It might be stepping up our cleaning game. It might be rearranging a bit of equipment. It might be expanding some of the equipment if it fits our needs. It might be just communicating things that we thought were obvious that clearly we haven't communicated well enough to all the members, and by tweaking our onboarding process. So we try to act on what we can, but please correct me if this doesn't feel right. But just because people have feedback about it doesn't mean we have to do something. It's
100%. Yeah. 100%. Yeah. I think, listen, I think you're dropping a lot of wisdom and knowledge bombs here, Ben, because I think there's a lot of things you mentioned here that are super best practices. And that one's got to be at the top of the list, right? Not all feedback requires a response, right? I think aside from thank you, right? And not everything is actionable. In fact, most of the feedback you get is probably not actionable. But I love that you do a few things, right? Like I love that you're asking for it in all the ways, although you're taking time to process it with some of your team. Like you mentioned, your GM is involved in this, in processing feedback. That's, I think, really valuable. I love that you're responding publicly to most of the feedback, smattering in the good stuff and the constructive stuff. We did that as well at Mark Fisher Fitness. We would post it, an actual printed version of the feedback with our responses around the gym so people could read it as they were standing around. And we got such great feedback about that kind of transparency. And they could see, like, this is the 300th time we're answering the question about why we don't have showers at this gym, right? And so they could see, like, we approached it with like patience and sometimes humor, but they got to see like what our thinking was. And some people still didn't like our response, but they appreciated the fact that we were transparent and consistent about our thinking. And so I love that. And I think, your last bit of wisdom here, which is like, not everything is actionable. So sorting through the feedback for what can we respond to and validate and acknowledge from our clients, and what can we, or what is reasonable to actually act on? What are the things we can actually do differently? And I think the two kind of characters, the two categories I would put on the actionability is some things are actionable now and some things might be actionable later. So I think we always try to do our best to say like, hey, we actually love this idea and we're ready to do something about it. In fact, next week you will see 5 new treadmills, right? And in some cases we said, we really love this, and treadmills are expensive. So we're going to save some money. And the minute we have $50,000, we will put in some treadmills, but don't look for them for at least the next year, right? And like, just as open and transparent as we can be about our logic and our thinking. And those clients who we told, we're going to wait a year for these treadmills, they were happy. They were happy that their comment was heard and seen, and they understood, when they might get the thing they wanted, And so anyway, I think you your process illustrates, I think, what is so valuable about this feedback is that it creates a two-way conversation with you and your team and your clients, where you're talking about what's working, what's not working, what do we like, what do we not like, what are the parts that are crushing it in the business, what are the parts that we think there's room for improvement in, right? And that is so valuable, right? That is so valuable. We get on calls all the time with gym owners who are like, I don't know what to work on next in my business. I'm not sure what to do next. I'm not sure what to do next. I'm not sure what to work on next. Go ask your clients.
Yeah.
They'll tell you what to do next. They'll give you more than you want in ideas for what to do next. And not all of them will be great. Not all of them are actionable, but they will give you ideas for things that they think you can and should be doing better. Yeah.
Yeah. They'll give you more ideas than you'll be able to act on.
Yeah. And I also just want to go back and just, just give, you personally a high five for I know how much work you've done at developing a thicker skin around feedback.
Right.
And being proactive about it, because you're doing it not only for your gym, but we both do it here for Business of Unicorns as well. And I think we're very fortunate at Business of Unicorns to work with mature gym owners who are coming at us usually with not as harsh feedback as we sometimes get from gym clients.
Yeah.
But still, the fact that you do it on multiple fronts and you do it so well, I know is learned. You practiced and worked on that.
Yeah, that was not innate whatsoever. I love my family, and the way we handled conflict was we buried our heads in the sand until it had passed.
Mm-hmm.
So this is a completely nurture, not nature. Like I had to relearn, I had to unlearn habits before I could fill my cup with useful habits. Yeah.
It was a purposely developed skill. Yeah. Yeah. Good for you. Well, I mean, just leave the folks with some initial final thoughts here, Ben, which is for anyone listening that's like, you know what? I've never done any of those things. I've never really asked for Google reviews. I've never really done formal or informal asking or feedback. Where do people start? What do you think a good first step is for folks?
Well, I've kind of got two options, which I know isn't helpful.
Great. It's okay.
If you're not asking for Google reviews, you absolutely should start.
100%. Yeah.
Because it also is going to give you feedback, but it's also going to get you leads over time by playing the Google game on Google. So I think that's kind of one of the foundational marketing things that you should be doing as a gym owner or a business owner.
I'll also put like a big asterisk on that is that strategically, of course, when you're asking for Google reviews, you're kind of stacking the deck and you really are asking people who are doing good work and who like you. So just know, yes, I agree. This is absolutely a first step. Go ask for reviews. Just know that by definition, you should be primarily getting praise on those Google reviews. When a client's pissed at you, you're not like, you know what? Don't send me an email. Go put that in a Google review.
You post your hate publicly. That'd be really useful.
So just know by definition, you're going to get feedback from them, but it's mostly praise, which is great. And start there. And Ben's second suggestion will also be valuable in getting more critical feedback.
Yeah, I'm a bias towards the quarterly member feedback.
Yes.
Make it 5 or 6 questions. All but the last one are multiple choice, so it doesn't take people very long. In the email or communication you use to ask them to fill it out, highlight the fact that it is like 5 questions and will take you, I put in like 1 minute and 4 seconds to complete, just as like a joke. So then people think it's oddly specific. It seems to work.
Yeah.
And it's like cleanliness, coaching, overall delivery or experience.
Yeah.
Anything else to add? That would be a great starting point. And scale of 1 to 5 or 1 to 10. Anything else to add? And do that as your first go and send it to members and just like see what it comes back at. You don't need to get all the questions perfect. You're going to delete some and add some over time. But that's a great place. And then when people come in with the feedback, thank them for the feedback. Thanks everybody for doing this. We've never done it before. We always want to improve. You help us improve. Like people I think in my experience, everybody likes the feeling of collaboration. They want to feel like they're involved.
Yes.
And even though our clients probably in their heart of hearts know that they don't actually get to say what we do in our business.
Sure.
The fact that we solicited feedback and gave a shit goes a really, really, really long way.
Yeah. They feel like they're contributing. We had so many ninjas at MFF over the years who felt like they really played a role in helping build the place because they were often asked for their opinion, and they would see that their opinion and their ideas would get implemented from time to time, right? And that flow of we ask you, you tell us, then we do something about it. It's like such a powerful cycle to building trust and long-term relationships. Yeah. So just to go back and reiterate what you said, it's a survey once a quarter to all your clients. It's a few questions, scale of 1 to 5. How satisfied are you with the cleanliness of the gym, the quality of the instruction, the energy and programming, right? Whatever it is, with a final open-ended question. Anything else you want us to know? I think that's fantastic. It's a great place to start. I'll give a bonus tip here, which is some of you might want to consider incentivizing your people to complete it. So you might want to say, hey, for everyone who fills this out, I'll enter you into a raffle to win something, a free month, a free workout.
Brittany, we haven't done it yet. Brittany said that she got like 70% of people in her gym, and she's got like 1 million members.
Yeah.
To do the thing they just get entered in a raffle to win a Yeti mug.
Yeah, there it is. A mug. Yeah, or a Stanley, like people love a Stanley. Yeah, but I think just enter into a raffle to win something, and then I'll spend 3 minutes on it. I'll spend 2 minutes on it, right? I think so. Incentives can go a long way here to gathering that feedback, and it's so valuable for all the reasons we mentioned here today. Yeah, awesome. I think that's great, Ben. Awesome. Well, let's leave it there. We can keep talking about this topic for a while, but I think we covered a lot of our bases here. Thanks as always for the great conversation, Ben, and I hope you listeners got some good takeaways. I will see you all on the next one.
Thank you.